Welcome back to another episode of Braves Bullpen. Hello, everybody. I'm Ryan Siegel, joined alongside with Gardie and Gardie. Since we last talked, and it's tough with a weekly show to sit here and do you press the panic button? Do you not press the panic button? And week over week, you got to remind yourself it is a 162 game season. The Braves on a little bit of a skid here, 1-5 or 1-6 since we last spoke, including losing games to the Chicago Cubs, dropping 3 of 4 at home against the San Diego Padres, and then losing last night to the Chicago Cubs out at the friendly confines of Wrigley Field. That's a tough word for me today on a Wednesday afternoon when we're recording this. But Gardie, we talk about this all the time, right? It's a game of runs, obviously, but just across the board, it seems like, especially in pitching, it doesn't seem to be an issue there. It could seem to be an issue in the lineup. Like, where do you isolate? Yes, it is a May slump, but where do you isolate that actual difficulty in just putting wins on the board here in May?
I think I'm really going to be honest, and I'm for once I'm not going to blame pitching. I'm going to blame batting here because, as I said to you pre-show, I know we say that a ton. Probably should cut that out, save the good stuff for the actual show. But when you're losing 7-1, 3-1, 9-1, yeah, the number at the front, that 7, that 9 looks bad, but it does not matter if you're only scoring one run. Like that is not a winning solution to baseball. And the way that this team is constructed, the whole point is, oh, hey, we might deal with some slumping in pitching, whether that be our starting pitching in a Charlie Morton or a Bryce Elder or a Max Fried, or maybe it's a guy like Jimenez giving up 4 runs in the 8th. But you're supposed to have these bats, guys like Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna Jr. and Matt Olson, who can win you games 10-7 or 10-9. And if they're not performing, also that just puts even more stress on your pitching staff. It's the same adage that goes into football, Obviously your defense is going to look worse if they're spending more time on the field. If these pitchers aren't getting any relief when it comes to the offensive side of the baseball, it's going to affect them in a negative way too. So I think you really got to look there, especially when they're also not playing particularly well in the field. Look at Ronald Acuna Jr. dropping routine fly balls in right field like he is, Jose Canseco on the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, especially from the reigning NL MVP as well. The really only bright spot, especially on the pitching side of the ball, has been Chris Sale, who has seemed to dip into the fountain of youth. White Sox Chris Sale, even Boston Red Sox Chris Sale. Chris Sale in 9 starts, a 7-1 record with a 2.22 ERA, well on track to being a National League All-Star. But yeah, Guardy, to your point, just not getting enough run production. And we've talked about, analytics and all the fancy stats, and it says you need to score about 4 to 5 runs to have a above 70% chance of winning baseball games. And that's something that the Braves have been doing for the last few years. Is, to your point, yeah, it's been 9-7, 8-6, 5, 6-4. Like, so yeah, your pitching's getting dinged, but you do have that run support. And right now, yeah, we talk about obviously Acuna dropping routine fly balls, and obviously Sean Murphy has been hurt. We'll get into him. He just hit a 450-foot absolute blast this past week in his first rehab start with AAA Gwinnett. And Austin Riley, once again, now also cleared to swing a bat. Didn't realize that was a medical designation in Major League Baseball, but recovering from his left inflammation tightness. But Guardy, to your point, we talk about it as, a show, as a fan show. The Braves on average as a team are hitting 250. In years past, they've been hitting close to, as a team, 300. That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference. And yes, you could sit there and you could be like me in an apartment with no AC and just sweating right now, which I definitely think that certain fans are when they're watching Braves baseball. But at the same time, it is only May 22nd. There's a lot of time in the season, as you said, can't be Chicken Little and talking about the sky falling down right now, because we only talk once a week and they went 1-5 in that span. Yes, Sean Murphy's coming back, and that's going to be huge, not just from an offensive upgrade from Travis d'Arnaud, though I have nothing bad to say about Travis d'Arnaud. He's a very, very good, serviceable backup catcher, but he's not as young. He doesn't have as much pop. Obviously, having your all-star third baseman sidelined with a boo-boo doesn't help, but the only thing that I'm really sitting there and starting to, put the tinfoil in my hat is, wow, what is wrong with Ronald Acuna Jr.? And honestly, I don't know, if that, once again, if it's me being a crazy person and putting tinfoil in my hat, or if it's one of these things that I feel like, especially over the last couple of years in baseball, you've heard a lot more about. And it's that, oh, gee, this guy wasn't playing well or was making mistakes that just seemed very out of character. Oh, yeah, that's because he had a concussion and we didn't realize it. Or he actually, broke his pinky finger and it was he couldn't grip the bat tight enough and we just thought he could play through it. So I mean, I just, the way he just looks so out of character, and it's a huge head scratcher. All the other mistakes that are being made, I think you can chalk up to May baseball, or even just Bryce Elder. Maybe he's not that guy. But Ronald Acuna Jr., I don't know.
Yeah, Ronald Acuna Jr., we talked about it, only hitting 247, 15 stolen bases, and only 3 home runs here. And that's in 200 plate appearances already. So obviously atypical numbers for him. And again, also we talked about, and we talk about it all the time, the Braves lineup is great when the bottom of the order is also producing at a high clip. And obviously, having a 7-8-9 like you did last year, where you could rotate in 3 or 4 guys, even guys like Nicky Lopez who are coming in and hitting 280. Obviously, having that production, is, and truly it was a historic season last season. But again, like we talked about, the Braves are 4 games back of the Phillies in the loss column. Obviously we can sit here and standing watch every week. The Braves are still going to be a playoff baseball team. They are still have all the makeup of a playoff baseball team. You have to figure that Bryce Elder and Max Fried are going to turn it around. Charlie Morton's going to give you ups and downs. He has, since he feels like when he entered the league back in 1985, that's how long he's been kicking around. But right now, if you look at the Braves, again, having that Sean Murphy insurance in the lineup, to have that kind of 5-6 hitter to really back end, the Matt Olsons of the world who are hitting, in that cleanup spot, just to have extra lineup protection with Austin Riley and Sean Murphy coming back, I think is going to make all the difference. When you look at the schedule coming ahead, too, the Braves have 2 more games at Wrigley Field against the Cubs before they go to Pittsburgh for 3 against the Pirates, and then are home at Truist Park for 4 with the Nationals again. The Washington Nationals, somehow only 5 games below 500 this year, for a team that really doesn't have a whole lot of anyone on a roster. But Gardie,
That's a
again,
kind way of putting it. I was going to refer to them as a AAA ball club, but
well, there are the Colorado Rockies still in Major League Baseball, so I
and
won't.
the
I won't
Miami
complete.
Marlins. Sheesh.
Yep, and the Oakland Athletics, who the Braves then play after. I'm sure we'll talk more about that the following week on this show. But Gardie, again, we talk about it all the time and we see it all the time. Again, obviously too early to sound the alarm bells. And hopefully Sean Murphy and Austin Riley get back, and it kind of overall brings that lineup together.
Yeah, 1000%. Especially you're playing, other than the next 2 games against the Cubs, you're playing the next, what is that? I can't do math. 10 games against teams, or not even. You're pretty much playing the next 16, because I think they play 2 at Boston and they're back against the Nats again. You're playing like 16 to 18 games against teams that are below 500. Though you should be going 14-4 in 18 there, in my opinion. And I think that hopefully will kind of be a little bit of a slump buster too, because over the last 30 days, the Braves are hitting the 3rd fewest runs per game in Major League Baseball. To your point, that it proves, stats, gotta love numbers. you more than I, but it proves exactly what we're saying. They're not doing what they have been doing. I feel like every time it would be kind of like the opposite of that meme that you see about Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani when they're on the Angels, where it's like Mike Trout hit a 6,000-yard home run and Shohei Ohtani did this thing that hasn't been done since Oil Can Boyd in 1907. And they still lost 18-2. I feel like it was always the opposite of that. It was like, Ronald Acuna Jr. stole 7,000 bags and hit 3 home runs and did a cartwheel catch in the outfield, and the Braves won 10-1. And they're also, their OPS is terrible. They have a 650. The White Sox and the Nationals have better OPS over the last 30 days than the Braves do, and that should never be a statement that comes out of our mouth, especially with the amount of money we're paying some of these guys, especially with the alleged generational talent that we're supposed to have. Really, like, Jerry Reinsdorf is literally trying to play out the plot to major leagues in real life to move to Nashville, and they're getting on base more than us. That is a shonda of epic proportions, if you ask me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And with that, we want to hear from you, whether at home, on the road, in Truist Park, out of Truist Park. We want to hear from you. We are still waiting for our Quickcrete.
Still waiting for
our sources. We are still waiting for our sources on Quickcrete. So with that, thank you for tuning in this week. Tune in next week for another episode of Braves Bullpen.
I love you, Bloopy.